This guy has been incredible over the last 2 seasons. Just for the Eredivisie, he had 19 goals and 16 assists. However, when he was brought on a permanent contract for 475k, a promise was made. Within 2 campaigns, Europa League football had to be achieved. Last year's finish would normally have given that, but thanks to some Dutch Cup shenanigans, Go Ahead Eagles were in 3rd round Conference League qualifying. Dario was enraged. Having less than 2 years left on his deal, selling him for his value was the only option. It wouldn't be hard to find a suitor, but it's a little disheartening that he went to Serie B side Salento.
What are you doing? That's my name.
A deal that can rise up to 7 million, but Dario's anger was impacting the Conference League qualifiers. Crewman's men had to face Baník Ostrava. The winner had to face Fenerbahce or a team from Kazakhstan, so the next step was going to be a challenge. However, Crewman wasn't thinking about the task at hand, as in the 26th minute, Ivan Schranz opened the scoring at the soon-to-be expanded De Adelaar Shorst. Despite dominating the match with chances, there was nothing coming from Go Ahead, who went into the second leg down by 1. The side did feature some new signings. Starting was Dubinchak, a left back from Dynamo Kiev acquired on a free. On the bench, Vinicius Souza appeared. He also came in for free. That was basically it. Crewman tried to sign a center back, but every single defender was rejecting him. Do they really hate his suit that much? Ramon Hendricks didn't, as he was the only one to come in thus far, although he was just a backup. Still, Go Ahead should be winning this tie, and away from home, the aggregate will be equalized by Schallen. A solid first half, a crossbar hit in the second. What could go wrong? Red card? This penalty would put them up in the tie, but Karlgren saved it. Padding was still across Crewman's face, but the club survived 65 more minutes, leading to a penalty shootout. Everything was going to plan until Schallen hit the post. Thankfully, Sané would be stopped by Karlgren. As sudden death approached, it's crazy that a single idiotic mistake led to this point. But as Mario Dorgeles stepped up... Oh my gosh. So no European football again. Crewman was starting to become a meme in the Netherlands, so his side needed to automatically qualify for Europe. Wins versus Volendam and Willem II was a nice change of pace compared to previous seasons. Against Ajax away from home, things were looking fantastic as Maximiliano Romero started things off with a 24th minute goal. Now for some reason, Ajax signed a different Maximiliano. Gomez was theirs, and he equalized. I say for some reason because Tony Martinez scored 34 last campaign, and they refused to sell him despite getting a nearly £50 million bid. Go Ahead were looking like the better side, but Ajax would grow into the match, and Edson Alvarez would take the lead off a corner. Changes were going to be made, until a chance came up in the 92nd minute. And gone. Yeah!
I swear you'll never see anything like this ever again!
A satisfying draw away to the champions of the last 7 years. Soon after came the arrival of Zach Aw from Arsenal on loan.
Say ah.
And with his contract expiring at the end of the campaign, maybe he would actually join on a free. The draw versus Ajax was an incredible moment, but it did stop the winning. Despite playing well, a 0-0 versus Heerenveen arrived. At home versus Twente, victories looked to be back on the menu as Ugalde scored within the first minute. Twente, though, responded with a nice goal. Adam Armstrong! Then after a few questionable decisions, Czerny decided he was Arjen Robben and took the lead for Twente. 2 great goals, but where did that come from? Schallen had a great opportunity to equalize, but he messed it up as Go Ahead somehow lost this game. Wins followed versus Eindhoven and Excelsior, but with 4 straight away games in the league, the victories didn't last long. Despite playing better, Utrecht ended in a draw. Feyenoord was a 0-0 draw, where this time, Go Ahead were lucky. PSV with now Peter Bosch as coach were having a rough time, except against Crewman, where they deservedly won 2-1. The final away match versus Vitesse was much better, with Vinicius Souza scoring in the 72nd to give a 1-0 dub to Go Ahead. 11 games in, and even with having to face most of the difficult teams away from home, they were in 5th, just 6 points behind first place. With all these matches coming up, this was a great time to cement a European place for Go Ahead. Sparta Rotterdam saw Envekali take the lead in the 58th minute. Crewman's men didn't play well, but they were holding on.
I am a little bit in shock.
A 1-1 draw where they had no shots on target. Okay, well, Nat Brada were struggling this season, and it showed. Ngom and Jete both contributed to take a 2-0 lead in the first 14. In spite of Omarson catching the backline off guard in the 60th, there was no way Go Ahead were going to bottle this. Okay, what the crap is going on?
Oh my god!
Not ideal. That led to Crewman calling up one of the super Belgian troops, Sam Jonkere. He arrived around a year and a half ago with several other players from Belgium. Who knew there were some decent players available in the second and third Belgian divisions? They all had decent potential and at worst, alright resale value. Sam would make his first 11 debut versus local rivals Pek Zwolle, where it ended in a 0-0 draw. I still refuse to talk about you. Following them were AZ. They were struggling a bit this year as they had already sacked manager Jagoba Arasate. Their attempt to hire Crewman 7 days before this fixture failed. Instead, they got Jan de Jonge and their side looked terrible. Prior to halftime, they would concede a penalty and Ugalde tucked it home. Unfortunately, chances were still being squandered and 15 minutes after the break, Rune Larsen turned their defense and finished a nice shot. Now with all 5 subs being made, surely FM wouldn't have one of Crewman's players get injured. Despite being the better team, nothing separated the two clubs for yet another draw. However, it looked like Groningen at home was finally going to end this drawing streak. A Schallen goal was separating the two, but in the 89th minute, how the hell does that just happen? In the final match of 2026, Emmen were the opponents, and surely this wouldn't end in a draw. Crewman was going to lose his mind, but somehow, the boys were playing great. And Vicali in the 19th, and a penalty won, leading to an Ngom goal. The players were going to get tired, but surely this time, they could hold on. Another one. Well, it's Christmas now, so I got the perfect gift for Crewman. 6 draws in a row was painful, so a signing was needed. One who would finally replace Del Rio. His name was Guus Till. Available on a free in 6 months, he agreed a contract, and PSV allowed him to join straight away for only 475k. The problem was that he barely played football in the last 2 years, so the man could barely play a half without passing out. He didn't really help in the first 2 matches, where the club drew 0-0 in both. So now they can defend. The team was drawing so much in such spectacular fashion that they hung this up at the Louvre. It still needed to be updated though, as even in the Dutch Cup, the club drew. Sparta Rotterdam were the opponents, and 5'2" Scott Guest was sent off in the 34th minute. The battle went to extra time where Remco Balk would take advantage of a silly mistake and terrible goalkeeping. Thankfully, Super Mario equalized and the Eagles won in penalties. At this point, the cup may be the best chance for Europe, as against FC Volendam, Go Ahead drew again. Volendam's goals? Well, Aziz first scored this, and then this, which had Karlgren being questioned for match fixing. And Ngom also got a red card. 9 draws in a row led to Go Ahead being placed in 10th. Despite the fraudulence, they weren't far off of Europe.
I think we ain't doing yet.
Some signings and sales were needed. Get Ugalde, Amofa, and Karlgren out of here. Just under 5 million received for them combined. Also, get Dubinchak out of here on loan. Adekanye also went out on loan. For Go Ahead, Benita from Feyenoord came in for a loan to back up Bruckner. Then for goalkeeper, another loan. From RB Leipzig, former FM wonder kid Martin van der Voort. The final transfer would be the biggest one so far. Philip Bungard of Randers FC. Or how the Danes say,
Philip Bungard.
He seems like he can develop into the perfect striker, but with the fee of 5 million up front, it was a huge risk. Although, in his debut versus Vitesse, he would score. And Vicali would help out too, scoring a brace to make things too difficult for the opponents. Finally, a win. Oh, they actually won a game before all of these signings came in. Willem II was defeated 1-0 with a 79th minute Maxi Romero goal. Yeah, that was only his 4th of the season and was why a striker was necessary. Before the team could get ahead of themselves, they had to play PSV in the quarterfinals of the Dutch Cup. The drawing may have ended in the Eredivisie, but that wasn't the case here. No goals in 120 minutes meant another penalty shootout. In front of the home crowd, Van der Voort would stop the first pen. Romero scored his, along with Jay Simmons and Ngom. Luke de Jong would have his saved as well. With Shaolin giving a 3-1 lead, Go Ahead Eagles needed just one more goal or a PSV miss. That didn't arrive as Babad succeeded, while Van der Voort did a bit of a jive. Nevertheless, Envakali was stepping up to send Go Ahead to the semi-finals. Oh no. A terrible gut feeling came across Crewman, but he couldn't go to the bathroom and saw Teze score. Vinicius Souza, who converted a pen this season, was next. Vinicius. No! Nobody would miss until the goalkeeper stepped up. It shouldn't have, but Van der Voort turned into Arsenal Peter Cech, just walking off the line as PSV calmly tucked their pens in. Schicks scored a perfect pen, while Van der Voort had his denied. An absolute bottle job by Go Ahead, but they were able to shake it off until the March international break. NAC Breda and Excelsior were defeated, while I will still continue not to talk about Pek Zwolle, as they drew Go Ahead 0-0 once again. A 2-2 draw versus Feyenoord afterwards was more respectable. Both sets of fans appreciate each other, and it was nice to see them dethrone Ajax to win the Eredivisie. It looks like it finally paid off for Donny van de Beek. Following that, Boongaard scored a brace versus FC Eindhoven in a 3-1 victory, and Go Ahead got their revenge over PSV with a 2-0 win at home. 28 match days in, and the club were back in a European place. With an international break putting a pause on the momentum, Ajax would be the first game upon the league's return. Despite struggling this season, they were able to add Thomas Lemar and Fabian Ruiz to their already great team, yet the score remained tied for a while. Goose still had a great opportunity after the restart, but it would be Tony Martinez beating Walcott in behind to open the scoring. That small margin gave Ajax the victory. Post-international break syndrome was hitting the Eagles, as Sparta Rotterdam away brought on another loss. Heerenveen at home was also extremely irritating. They had 2 goals in the first 4 minutes. Boongaard and Infakali were able to salvage a draw, but what the hell was happening? Twente away was a wild game too. Goose Till was able to open the scoring to have a lead at the half. However, after a terrible Boongaard miss, Gijs Small smashed in a free kick. They almost won it in the 65th and 84th, but the score remained the same by the end. With 2 fixtures left, the club were in 6th, 2 points behind 5th. Wait a minute, who won the Dutch Cup? Despite winning the last 2 matches, including scoring 8 against AZ, that's what you get, you bozos, Go Ahead Eagles finished in 5th place and were once again screwed by the Dutch Cup. They severely underperformed their XG, while AZ overperformed by 16 points. The Eagles also broke a club record for most draws in a season with 17. The league record is 18, but there's no way they could break that. The club had to enter the European playoff, where 5th to 8th play in a 4-team, 2-legged knockout tournament. So crewmen had to face Groningen, who they just beat.
Nope.
Right, there's a reason we're here. Heerenveen helped us a bunch last season, but the opposite was the case this time. Regardless, the team was pounding them to the floor. Yet, it took until the 56th to break the deadlock. Wingback Benita would surprisingly be the one to do it. Brugner was injured, and so were several players. That includes the deep-lying playmakers like Lindhorst and Souza, along with Fagan Walcott. The good news was that Zach Aw was back. Even so, chance after chance came, yet the score stayed the same. Heerenveen were nowhere to be found, but in the 91st minute, a throw-in led to a cross, and on their second shot of the match, Van Beek somehow scored this header. 0.1 expected goals. With the second leg at home and how Go Ahead were playing, surely they could seal this. It took until the 71st minute, but a deserved lead was earned by oh, it was offside. Don't worry. Envakali would score a minute later. It took a lot more work than anticipated, but Crewman learned his lesson. Instead of staying on positive, he would park the bus to seal the a highlight in the 90th minute? What a shitty pass! What the hell was that? No! What? Not again. Penalty after penalty were being scored. But surely FM wouldn't be so cruel. Mangraviti now, our center back. Why? Don't do this. Wow, Crewman has bottled European football 3 times now. With 1 year left on his contract and the lack of progress of qualifying for Europe, this next season is make it or break it. Oh, and one more thing, since those 2 Heerenveen matches technically ended in draws after 90 minutes, Go Ahead Eagles set a league record for most draws in a season.